So, I'm doing a political test because I wanted to make a video about democracy, but I thought that maybe it could just be better to do a bunch of different stuff and talk about it as I go. So, I'm probably going to take the short version because 216 questions is insane. So, let's go. When people have already suffered for technology to be developed, we should use that technology. Um, I guess I agree. If I didn't agree, then pretty much all of history should be ignored. There was a lot of stuff that happened during World War II that was awful, but good technology came out of it, so I guess I'll agree. People should have the power to choose their leaders. I agree. Only extremely talented immigrants, if that, should be permitted to enter the country. Um, I don't know how you would gauge talent. I think that maybe if they have a lot of money, unfortunately, they would be able to get in faster. But I don't know how you would gauge talent. I don't really know how you would do that, so I disagree. Basic things needed to live, such as healthcare, are rights. Um, I wouldn't say it's a right because it depends on how you're going to define rights. Who's giving you the rights? Um, like where do they originate from? Uh, I don't think that anyone's entitled to necessarily any service provided by another person. I don't feel comfortable saying it's right. Do I think that it could be provided by the government? Sure, but I don't see the ability. I just don't see how you could call it a right, I guess. So I'll just say I'm neutral. Government must maintain a strong military to defend itself. Once again, like all of history would say agree. We should be more accepting to other cultures. The question again is which culture? So I'm going to disagree because it, it's not that every culture is inherently bad. There are good things in some cultures and bad things in others, but just saying we should be more accepting to other cultures is it's just too broad. So I disagree. Governments should be as concerned about foreign citizens as they are about those within their borders. I'm not entirely sure what this is saying, I guess. If they're talking about citizens that are living abroad in another country, I don't think it's like a super heavy concern. They're living somewhere else for a reason. Um, Probably just disagree. Most drugs should be legal. No, I don't think that you could make any argument for legalizing all drugs. Um, I mean, just look what Oregon did recently. So, disagree. Most bad things happening in the world are caused by us turning away from religion. Um, Depends on what religion you're talking about. But in general, I'll agree. And I'll agree because, one, I'm a Christian, but the second point is religion provides community, a basis of morals, meaning to life. Like, religion in general is inherently better than atheism because, just look at what atheism provides. Just it's a lack of meaning and not really providing a good, strong basis for what's right and wrong. So I'll say I agree. Technology is negatively affecting modern society. In some ways, yes, in some ways, no. I'll just say unsure, neutral. People should hold more loyalty to their local state than their country. Uh, this is hard to say. I think that in general, loyalty to the state and the country are essentially on equal ground. It just depends on who you are. I'll just say I'm neutral. Illegal immigrants do not provide a benefit to the hosting country. Um, the country as a whole, no. To certain individuals that take advantage of illegal immigrants, yes. But I'll remain neutral on it. Traditional medicines are often more effective than modern medicine. What? What does that mean? What's a traditional medicine? Um, I don't know what a traditional medicine is, so I'm just gonna say unsure. It is better to maintain a balanced budget than to ensure welfare for all citizens. Um, I mean, not everything's gonna be perfect. I think that we're gonna see the results of what not maintaining a balanced budget is gonna do, especially with Social Security. So at times, yeah, I think it's better because at some point, you're gonna have to deal with debt, and it's not gonna work out exactly how you want it to. And even though the United States is like one of the only countries that can just print money and be relatively fine, it'll catch up to them soon. So I'll agree. Police need more power and protection. Uh, Depending on what this means, I could agree or could remain neutral. Like, what do you mean power? What do you mean protection? Like, they already have guns. They can enforce the law. Um, I'm neutral on the subject because I don't think that they need it, but I don't want to say that they don't need it at the same time. Um, Pretty boring, but neutral again. Religion does not belong in government. Once again, it depends on what religion you're talking about. I think that religion always influences government. And it could be one of the mainstream religions or just the new religion. Because I define religion in a much more broader sense than just that a god is involved. You don't need a god involved to have a religion, in my eyes. So I'd say that certain religions I agree they don't belong, and for my religion, um, it does belong because I think it's right, and it's going to be involved anyway. So disagree. International aid is a waste of money. Um, Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. It just depends on where it's going, what it's being used for. Is it benefiting the country that it's going to, and is it benefiting the country that's sending it? It needs to be a symbiotic relationship. I'm just gonna be a centrist, I guess. I don't really know. It just depends on where it's going and what it's doing. Nobody but me can adequately represent my views. Um, well, some people have similar beliefs, so if you're like adhering to the religion by the book, then certain people could adequately represent my views. But the reason that I'm doing this test is because um, a lot of people just make assumptions, and I want this to exist just so that you can kind of see where I stand. Um, once again, it just depends on who the person is, and um, I mean, I don't know. It's really hard. I'll just remain neutral again. I don't know. Stay out of international affairs. Are we talking about Iraq? Are we talking about Vietnam? Are we talking about the Korean War? I mean, there was a lot of things that the United States did that maybe shouldn't have been done. Maybe it should have been done. Maybe it should have been done in a different way. Um, the international affairs that the United States has been involved in, sometimes we've done a good job. Sometimes it's been, we defeat the Nazis. Sometimes it's we're blowing up weddings. I mean, I don't want to laugh, but it's kind of ridiculous. I still believe that in general, because of how much power the United States have, it's inevitable that we'll get involved. Um, it's just that how we get involved matters to me. So I'll disagree. Immigrants should be expected to learn the language of the country. Yeah. I mean, majority of countries have a national language. I think that it causes more problems than it solves to just say, well, speak whatever language you want. Um, since we live in America, you should at least know broken English at the very least. Um, but if you're moving somewhere, then you should be expected to learn the language. We have this standard, at least in America, where it's like, oh, you need to be able to speak French if you're going to live in France, or you need to know how to speak Japanese if you're going to move to Japan and try and integrate into the culture. But for some reason, when it comes to America, it's called racist if we say you should learn English. So yeah, I think that it's the same standard all across the world. The dominant language should be expected if you're going to move there. So learn it, I guess. A nation must obey its leadership without question. Strongly disagree. I don't think I should have to explain why, but actually I want to go back real quick. Um yeah, I don't think I should have to explain why, but you should always be questioning leadership as long as it's human leadership. As long as the human's in charge, no matter how good they are or how good you perceive them to be, you should always be skeptical of them. The government should not fund any religious organizations in any way. I don't think the government has an obligation, and if the country is not majority of that religion, then it will cause more problems than solve. So I'll agree. And also, government spending could easily influence religion. I think that's really bad. So I agree. The UN should have a military to enforce its resolutions. I don't really like the UN and a lot of the things that the UN has done. I mean, I can't remember if it was Libya, but I think it was Libya, um, where once again the United States went to war over oil, and the UN was kind of its lapdog, did whatever it wanted it to do. So, um, I'll remain neutral. It's too hard to say. It exists. It's going to do its thing. Um, I mean, there's not much else to say about it really. So, military action by our nation, no. It's hardly ever to protect. Well, it's to protect the economy and our oil supplies. That's majority of the time when you see the United States is going to war, it's about the economy, not about, our lives are in jeopardy. So I disagree. Some freedom must be given up in order to keep people safe. Of course, this is like law 101. You can't just do anything you want. Because how I define freedom is if you have a true freedom to do whatever you want, you have no boundaries on what's right and wrong either. You can do whatever you want, and to restrict that freedom, there needs to be laws, and you have to give up some of those things you may want to do to keep people safe, but also to keep order. So I'll strongly agree. There should be compulsory military service. I disagree. And the reason I disagree right now is in the past, I think it could have been helpful. I think it could have been helpful for a lot of men in this generation too. But the state of the military and now men and women are equal. And it might sound weird to say, but just look at the men and the women of Gen Z who are in their 20s and the disparity between the men on the right, or I should say, more men in my generation are going to the right while more women are going to the left. If you look at South Korea, particularly, they have to, the men have to serve in the military for 2 years. Because of that, women get a massive advantage in life because for 2 years the men are just stuck. Basically, they can't get started on a job. They can't start building a family, but the women get to do both of those things. So it's not right in the current way that society is structured, especially in South Korea. So I disagree. Local governments address issues that the national government would never touch without them. Yeah, I probably strongly agree with that because, I mean, look at a lot of the situations that have happened in specific areas of the United States. And I mean, the national government, if the event is big enough, the national government will talk about it. They won't do anything about it. And if it's not big enough, it will never even be talked about. So local governments, I think, even need to do more for the communities. And the communities as a whole need to get involved in local governments a little bit more if they want them to do a better job. So, strongly agree. In the modern era, militaries aren't really necessary. Well, that's kind of stupid. Strongly disagree. Strong states weaken a nation. If this is talking about, it depends on what they mean by states. If it's talking about the United States, like actual states, then I think that they make a nation stronger. But if it's talking about, if it's defining states as like organizations or individuals that have a lot of power, I think that can weaken a nation. But I also think that strong states like the United States, they can weaken other states. California, for instance, is trying to bully some of its neighbors to get water. And it's not really fair because California is so big, they have a ton of money, and they'll obviously influence the government more, the national government. So they'll be able to force their neighbors to do things that they may not want to do. So I'd say that strong states can weaken a nation, but in general, they make it stronger. So I disagree. Lasting peace leads to prosperity. Yeah, I'd agree. Children should be educated in religious values. Depends on the religious values, but yeah, I'd agree. Nations should cooperate whenever it benefits them both. Yeah, I was talking about this earlier. I think that, in general, I think that sometimes a nation could help another nation when it doesn't benefit them, but if it benefits both nations, it's a lot smoother, and it doesn't create environments where, I mean, it doesn't matter how the war in Ukraine ends. However it ends, Ukraine is going to be completely subjected to either Russia or the United States. They're not going to be a sovereign nation anymore. I mean, they were hardly a sovereign nation before, but I mean now they're like Zelensky's not even in charge. So, yeah, I think I'd agree. Police should be regulated more. Certain police departments, yes. Other police departments, no. The police aren't like, you can't just say like black people. You can't just say all black people are criminals because a larger portion of the black community commits crimes. You can't just say police. You'd have to give me examples of police departments that are causing way more trouble than other police departments and say, they need to be regulated or restricted. It's not fair to generalize groups. So I'd disagree. Testing products on animals is ethical. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. I'd rather they test on animals than humans because, believe it or not, animals don't have souls. They don't live forever. They will be in the ground when they die. So I don't believe in like torturing animals to get results, but I'd rather an animal suffer than a human being. In the same way, if there was a human trapped in a fire or my own dog trapped in a fire and I could only save one, I'd save the human. So, yeah, I'd agree. Religion usually provides the truth. Again, it depends on what religion. But in general, I think that when it's saying the truth, I think that the general truths about religion, like there is a creator, or there is right and wrong, or there is a truth. At the very least, it says there is a truth. So I'd say agree. It is necessary for the government to intervene in the economy to protect consumers. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. I think America in the past, America in the future, America in general, after the Industrial Revolution, they had a serious problem with monopolies. And we have a problem with monopolies today, but the average person has a lot more money than they did in the past, so people don't complain about it as much. But yeah, obviously the government's going to need to step in at some point. So I'd agree. Environmental regulations are essential. Yes. And they're essential because it's not just about the environment at times, it's about the people living there. For example, my hometown, Ottawa, Illinois, I don't live there anymore, but I think it was the late 1800s where, if you know anything about the Radium Girls, one of the paint factories was there. And after the government shut them down because of what happened, they just dumped all the paint on the ground. The water in that town became contaminated and it was radioactive, and now they need special treatment. But in the modern day, that same town is where the Fox and the Illinois River meet, takes all the pollution and garbage from Chicago and dumps it into Ottawa, Illinois. If you ever are interested in cancer hotspots, Ottawa, Illinois is one of them. So not only are they essential for like the past, they're essential for the present and the future. So I'd agree. There should be no Okay, strongly disagree. Democracy makes it too easy for the majority to further its Okay, so as I said at the beginning, this video was supposed to be on democracy, and I 100% agree with this. The majority can easily be wrong. I don't want to sit here and talk for 20 minutes about this one question, but in general, I think that the Electoral College is good because it limits the power of the majority. And what I mean by that is, so the popular vote, it usually matters. I think only 5 presidents ever won, even though they lost the popular vote. So it's not that many. But the Electoral College, I think, protects the minority in the country. It's hard to explain in just like a short amount of time. Maybe I'll really do a video on it in the future. But in general, I agree. Democracy is the worst form of government. except for all the others we've tried. Okay, so it's saying it's the best system we have. Um, I mean, I wouldn't say it's the worst. I think democracy provides a lot of good. And if it's done the right way, it can, well, this question, it's worded weirdly, but I would say there are better systems, but we haven't discovered it yet, which is weird. I disagree with that statement that I just made. I'd say that democracy is the best form of government, and you can keep searching if you think there's a better one out there, but for now, I think that's where we're at. So I wouldn't say it's the worst. There's plenty of worse things that we haven't tried. So I'll disagree. The government okay, I disagree with this too for reasons I said previously. Um, but I guess I'll talk about it a little bit more. The reason why monopolies need to be broken up by the government is because at some point the market can't correct itself. If you know anything about Andrew Carnegie or Rockefeller, it was rather easy for them to just buy up all the competition because it was either you're going to be bought or you're going to be run out of business and have nothing. So you could either, you could stop doing your steel sales or you're gonna be pushed out of the market anyway. So monopolies need to be broken up when it gets to a point where the monopoly is just able to either buy the competition or push them out of the market. So they should break up monopolies. Disagree. People should think of themselves as citizens of their nation rather than their state. I'm neutral on this. I think that you can be like it goes way back to the beginning. Some people value the state more, some people value the country more. But in general, people living in like Texas, for example. Texas is a pretty prideful state. They love their state. It's the Lone Star State, right? But a lot of the values that Texans hold come from, like America as a whole values. So you can think of yourselves as a citizen of your state or your nation, because I don't think that there's that big of a disparity. So I'll stay neutral, actually. Oppression by corporations is more of a concern than oppression by governments. I think in a certain society that doesn't exist, the corporation would be worse. But we have seen oppression by governments that was worse than I think any oppression by a corporation. I think that corporations can influence governments to do certain things, but it's the government that's actually able to execute it. And I guess what I mean by that is a corporation could influence the government to, well, this has happened before, Banana Republic, to basically squash competition and make certain countries even do their bidding. But it's the government that's able to execute it because the government has the military. If a corporation had a military, then they would be able to do a lot more damage. But it's the government that's fully executing things. So in a certain society that doesn't exist yet, the corporation would be more of a danger. Right now, governments are the oppression by government is at a higher potential. So I'll actually stay neutral on this one because I could see a world where this is worse. A national government must be strong to adequately protect all its citizens. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It all depends on how you look at it. What do you mean by strong, right? I'll stay neutral. Diplomacy only hurts nations. I disagree. I don't think that I think that diplomacy, it can help nations, but at the same time, it depends on who you're talking to. Diplomacy can be good, or it could get you absolutely nowhere. But I don't think it hurts a nation. The nation that I live in, and probably majority of you live in, the United States, diplomacy isn't going to do anything to us. Diplomacy does a lot of our diplomacy when our diplomats go abroad. It does a lot to other countries, and it can hurt them. But it does help the United States, so it doesn't only hurt nations. So I'd disagree. Okay. So let's see. This is the result I got last time. I took this test before, like a few months ago or something like that, and I was 55% democracy, 45% authoritarian. And it's not that I hate democracy and like authoritarianism. It's just that there are flaws with democracy. Not saying that they could be supplemented with authoritarianism, but yeah. So I think last time I was a little bit more of an isolationist. Um, I didn't want to be as hardcore of an isolationist this time around because isolationism. I don't like globalism. I think I'm gonna do a video on globalism eventually, but I think I like regionalism. I don't like a complete isolationist ideology, but I do like regionalism. I'm glad I'm 50-50 on this. Um, I don't know how I ended up extreme on security. Okay, it was probably all the questions about the police that did that in. I don't think that I'm this like, we need to crack down on the people, but um yeah, that's probably about right. I'd say. Obviously, I'm going to be religious. I don't know how I don't know what this is saying. I don't like progressive and traditionalist. I don't know. I'm assimilationist. Yeah, I think that assimilation gets a bad rap, especially by the left. I don't think assimilation is bad. I think that if you tell me you're fleeing your country and you want to come to America, you come to America not to be what you were. You come to escape the past. You come to build a new life and uh, try and not recreate what you were just experiencing. It's not that you need to abandon like the way that the foods that you eat or how your relationship with your family goes or the holidays that you even celebrate. But there are certain cultures out there that they do not mix well. Okay, so it says closest match is liberalism. And last time I got centrist. I mean maybe I explained it further this time around, but I don't really see how I mean maybe the globalist is doing a lot of heavy lifting, but I look at these results and I mean maybe it's because of the federal thing. Um I don't really know why I'm so high on the progressive factor either. I guess I'm a liberal. No. I wouldn't say that I'm a liberal. So, yeah, I mean, okay, so I'm moderate federal. I'm neutral on democracy and authoritarianism. Uh, I'm a moderate globalist and neutral on military and pacifist. Um, extreme on security, neutral on equality in markets, moderate religious. Like I said, I don't know what moderate progressive means. Um, like what was the tradition questions? Um, and then moderate assimilationist. Majority of the things I'm either moderate or neutral on. I don't see how that matches up with liberalism, but Oh well.